This video is to help you with your mindset when you're feeling unwell. So, if you're not feeling well at the moment, this is going to be great for you. And if you're feeling okay, then this is going to be great preparation and set you up for next time you're unwell. Not that I am wishing you that on you at all, but it is, how it goes that from time to time we all get ill, even though a lot of us plan our lives out as if that isn't the case, which is one of the things that I want to talk about. But I've been wanting to do this video for a while, probably for about a month or so since the latest seasonal viruses started to circulate around. And I've just been getting more and more clients coming to calls feeling unwell. And I realized that I really wanted to share something about what can happen with your mindset when you're not feeling well and how you can best work with that. And I remember thinking to myself that I should really get it recorded before I get struck down by one of the seasonal viruses. And of course, that didn't happen. I ended up with a cold. And so this has been slightly delayed. I had to take a little bit of time to recover. And I've just got back to the stage where I can talk without having to use throat sweet to stop myself from coughing. And so I thought, great, we're ready. This is the time I'm going to get this video recorded. So it is very much inspired by the kind of like coughs, colds, flu-like viruses that are around at the moment. But my intention is that it should be useful for you, whatever is impacting your physical health. So it's really for to help you with working with your mindset whenever you're feeling physically unwell. So whether that's from a short-term illness or it's from a longer term or chronic condition that impacts you, this should be really helpful for you. So let's make a start. The most important thing that you need to know about your mindset when you're unwell is that it is likely to deteriorate. That is perfectly normal, very natural. And it's just because you have less energy. When you're ill, your energy levels are lower. Maybe you're fighting infection or you're dealing with discomfort. There's just less energy. And that's just as true for your brain, for your mind, as it is for your body. So your brain is going to want to think in the way that is the easiest and just takes the least amount of effort. And for our brain, that means thinking in a more negative way because our brains have a negativity bias as a built-in safety feature. It's there just to have us looking out for danger, looking out for threats, looking for potential problems in order to keep us safe. So by default, the easiest way for the brain to think is with a negative slant. So if you're feeling unwell at the moment and you notice that maybe you're also feeling more anxious, worried about things, or maybe your inner critic has got louder, so you're just giving yourself a harder time. Maybe you're finding it harder to make decisions. Perhaps you're questioning yourself, second guessing all the time. Or maybe it just all feels a bit shit. Like that feeling of I'm not feeling well and all my life is terrible. All of it is just a mess. Like nothing has gone wrong. It just means that you have the mindset of somebody who's not well. And this might not feel particularly helpful, like not particularly good news, but it is because if we're aware of what goes on in our brain, then we can work with it. And so if you know that when you're ill, your mindset is going to be slightly impacted negatively, it's going to like come down a level, nosedive a little bit, then you can decide how you want to deal with that. And my favorite approach is just to think about it, think about your brain like a friend, a loved one, a colleague who's just a bit grumpy is having a bad day. And think about approaching it like you might approach that person. So maybe you listen to it, like notice the thoughts that are there, but not really engage with them fully. Like don't have to agree with them, you don't have to believe them, but neither do you have to like argue against it. You can just let your brain be being that grumpy, having a bad day, saying those things, and it doesn't really have to be a problem. Okay. And then I want to talk to you about the impact that the illness can have, not just on your overall thinking, but on your specific thinking about you being ill. Because the way that we think about being ill is what it's what creates our approach to the illness and to taking care of ourselves in the illness. And while our general thinking can deteriorate, that specific thinking can deteriorate as well, which partly explains what I often observe with my clients and I notice happens with myself as well, is that we can kind of have one set of thoughts, an approach, like intentional approach to illness when we're feeling okay, or maybe when someone else is ill. But then when we're actually ill, it kind of becomes a different story. And so, like, maybe you have some really modern, evolved beliefs about the importance of rest when you're ill and of like well-being being the most important thing. Maybe you're fortunate to work in an environment where well-being is prioritized, and you may be that person who gives advice to others and tells them, like, it's really important. If you're ill, there's nothing you can do about that. You should really take care of yourself. You should rest. All of these things can wait. Nothing else matters. Just take care of yourself. And you can really believe those things. But then when you're ill and it's like a reality for you and your mindset is weakened because it doesn't have the energy to be that strong, intentional mindset that you've developed, it's going to revert back, not just to kind of a more negative approach, but to what feels easiest for it, which is often to revert back to the earlier, more established beliefs that we have. And unfortunately, for most of us, what has been programmed in as our more default thinking around illness and taking care of ourselves isn't particularly helpful. So, in general, in society, we are programmed and socialized to view productivity as king. Like what we achieve, how much we get done, that's what we're measured on. That's what creates success. That's what makes us worthwhile human beings. We've also, many of us, been given the message, either subtly or not so subtly, that it's not okay to take time off when you're ill. I posted back in the summer about my son's primary school end of year report and his attendance, which was, I think, just under 91% across the year. And how that was just about, I think, like just rounded up to 91%. He was categorized as satisfactory, but he was a way off being good. And he was nowhere near excellent, because excellent is categorized at 99%. And that is really reflective of how this is seen in society. Like what we're aiming for is almost 100% attendance. That's what's expected. That's what's good. We're not given the message that it's okay to take time off, or that that's an expected thing. We're given the message that it's some kind of failure, which means that you're not graded, not categorized as well as someone else. And what we're often given the message instead of that is that it's a really good thing to soldier on. We see people wear that as a badge of honor, like being somebody who never takes time off, never goes to the doctors, is never unwell. Like that is really celebrated and applauded. And so the thoughts that it's easiest for our brain to think, and the thoughts that our brain wants to revert back to when we're ill, they're thoughts that have been affected by all of this programming. And I often speak to people who we find thoughts when we're coaching that they associate illness with being unreliable, or they associate illness with being weak. Just have a little think for yourself. What are some of the thoughts and beliefs that you have about illness? What does it mean about you when you're ill? Is it okay for you to take time off? What does it mean if you do that? What's the kind of okay length of time that you can take off? And what does it mean if you take more than that? Because all of this thinking that we have generally leads to us pushing ourselves hard when we're not well. And how many of you have done that, of like feeling unwell, but like just keeping going, just like, I just need to get through this, or I just need to complete this work, or, I'm just going to sit at my computer and try and do this, even though I'm almost falling asleep or I've been staring at the wall for 20 minutes. I must do these emails. I'm just going to push through, just going to keep going. Often it has us avoiding taking time off, like avoiding going to all kinds of lengths to not have a sick record at work. I've spoken to so many people who are like, the idea of having any kind of sick record is just not acceptable. And so they'll take leave or they'll do all kinds of like whatever they can do to avoid that being the case, often just working when they're really not fit to work. This mindset also, I think, is what's responsible for the fact that we don't plan for illness at all. Like, think about when you're planning projects, whether they're personal projects or work projects, or you're setting goals. Very few of us think about building in slack for the fact that we're likely to be ill at some point during this process. Or if we're not ill, somebody else that we take care of might be ill, or something else might happen. Like, we don't tend to allow for these things because we don't see them as okay. But the reality is they do happen. Just if we're thinking about the common cold, I think the average number of colds that an adult has during the course of their life is something like 200, which works out like 3 to 4 colds a year, and that's just colds. That's not accounting for anything else. So it is a fact that as humans we get ill, but we're seeing that as a problem. We're aiming for this 99% of being well that just isn't realistic. So what do we do with all of this? I think it comes down to making decisions. So if you're ill right now, I want you to just notice the thoughts that you're having that are coming from this like programming that you've got, and then also the kind of slightly deteriorated mindset. It might be things like, I haven't got time to be ill. I've got to keep going. I've just got to get this done. Notice what it is. Or it could be that's like, everything is terrible thought. Notice what's there. But then you don't have to make decisions from those thoughts. And I want to give you some questions that you can ask yourself to give you another way to make decisions. And I'm thinking about decisions like what to do, what to not do, what rest to take, what to do about work, like those kind of decisions that you need to make when you're not well. So these are the questions that you can ask. You can ask yourself, what would I tell a friend? What advice would I give to somebody that I love? What am I going to think about these things that feel important now in 12 months' time, or even in 1 month? How important are they going to be? How am I going to feel about them then? And my favorite question is just, okay, I'm ill. What's the most loving thing I can do for myself? Okay. And then when you're better, or if you're not ill at all, there are also some important decisions that you can make. You can decide in advance how you want to take care of yourself next time that you're ill. You can decide what criteria you're going to use to decide whether you should work or whether you should do things, or whether and how you should rest. The more you make those decisions in advance and you make it really clear, the easier it's going to be for your brain when you're ill and you're in that position. Remembering that your brain is going to have very little energy, we want to set it up for success. So take those decisions, really be clear about what's important and how you're going to take care of yourself. And the other decision I think that we can all take is to build in some allowance for sickness into our plans, whether it's professional plans, personal plans, whether they're long-term goals, whether they're projects over the next few months. Like, what would it be like just to assume that there's going to be some time in that where you're not going to be feeling 100%? And even if like you end up being wonderfully well for the whole time, like there's no downside to that. Maybe you just get it done quicker, or that time gets used up by like other delays in the project, or like I say, by your children or your parents being ill and you having to take care of those. Again, this just makes it easier for your brain. Like, just imagine feeling unwell, needing to take a day out of whatever you're working on, or a week out of whatever you're working on, and knowing that that was built in, that it's still going to be possible for you to achieve your goals, to get the project done because you've allowed for this to happen. It's going to be so much easier for your brain to take the decision to rest and take care of yourself when you've made that kind of decision in advance. Okay, I hope this is really helpful. And if you're not feeling well, then I hope you feel better really soon. And that if you're well, that you stay well for as long as possible. And you don't need to come back to this video quickly for a refresher, but it will be here whenever you do.